Welcome back to the Queen's Couch Podcast International Women's Day special edition. Today's episode is titled Before I Felt Ready, Growing in Rooms I Thought I Didn't Belong In. It's a conversation for anyone who has ever questioned whether they deserved a seat at the table. So I'm joined by Grace Esu Ejimold Aquah, a PhD student at the University of Manchester, who has learned that confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you build through action. Grace, we're so glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Awesome. So your message centers on stepping into spaces before feeling ready. So can you share a moment when you questioned whether you belonged in a room and what made you choose to stay?
Okay, yeah. So before I even gave that particular topic, it's because it looks like the whole of my life has been all about that. So I've had multiple scenarios where I felt ready, where I didn't seem to feel ready, either by me telling myself that or by other people telling me that. So it started way back undergrad when I was trying to contest for the vice president role, vice president of the chemical engineering students. And they told me no, like the way they looked at me, like, are you insane? You can't go for that. I'm like, why? They said, you're female. And I'm like, okay.
No way.
And then when I thought about it, I had looked and it was a pattern for the whole time the department had been there. No one had ever, been female and been vice president because they now move ahead and become president. So in that scenario, I know I had to fight that stereotype, and I won that election, and it
Well
changed the whole
done.
narrative. However, that was people telling me, I didn't belong, or when I became the head of department at a very young age, no PhD, no nothing. And then when you go into a room and they're like, oh, we came for the chemical engineering head of department. And I'm like, that's me. And they said, no, we mean the head of department. I'm like, oh, that's me.
No way.
So it makes you question yourself at every
Yeah.
point. Like, what am I even really doing here? I go for collaborations and they're like, oh, we want to talk to the head of department. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm the head of department. They're like, where is she? Or when I had to interview professors for the role, because one of my job was to recruit lecturers, and then they come in for the interview, professors in suits, and I'm like, hey, okay, I'm the one interviewing you. Welcome, sit down. They're like, why? So all these things is people, trying to ask me like, are you sure you fit here? And then I have to prove myself. But then it was interesting me taking it as a challenge, proving myself and developing the confidence on the way. However, I started a PhD recently. Well, not quite recently because I'm towards the end of my PhD.
Yeah.
And I was excited. Yes, I won a scholarship and everything. It looks like a big achievement. But when I arrived, everything felt like unfamiliar. The research area was new to me. Yeah, it was something I was like, oh yeah, I can do this. But by the time I spoke to my professor, the approach he wanted me to take it from was different. Everything was different. I remember asking him, is there something like porous media research? And he said yes. And I'm like, I'm just hearing this for the first time. But we had there was a whole lot of PhD students around me, and all of them seemed to know what porous media research was. And I felt like I just crawled out of a hole. Like, what's really going on? Why am I here? It was like I was thrown into limbo. And, everyone, the good thing is that all of them were very helpful. They were trying to explain the whole thing to me, but I couldn't even grasp the concept. So I felt so stupid. I felt so overwhelmed. And I know my professor was really trying. After I know I tried to, I had to develop bad habits like self-sabotage. I was thinking if I delayed it a little bit, maybe he'll tell me to use the style I was familiar with.
Yeah.
But he said, no, Grace, you have to learn. This is how you grow. And I remember going to his office after like a year of my PhD. I
Mm,
sat down and I told him, I'm leaving.
no.
He knew me as someone who was, very outgoing and wanted to
Yeah.
do this. I was always wanting to do it, but at that point I felt like I couldn't do it anymore. That was the first time I understood, imposter syndrome. I understood it was a new concept to me. Yeah, I know I had to fight with people telling me I didn't belong, but now this was me telling myself I didn't belong. And it was so strange. I told him, I'm leaving. I have to go. I quit. And he had to tell me, no, Grace, you can do this. You know, he had to calm me down. And he told me, okay, let's take it this way. Let's take it step by step. So this was a scenario I faced. And then when I went home, I remember crying to my sister. And all of them were telling me, just remember how far you've come. Remember all the times you had to do things
Absolutely.
when you didn't feel prepared and how you handled it. And they were like, it's just a piece of, and you know, to cheer me up, it's just a PhD. You can do this. So I started thinking about all the people looking up to me and telling, and also I remember looking at myself in the mirror. You know, for a while, I wasn't even looking at myself in the mirror. I was down
No way.
myself. You know, after being such a person that you think you're a high achiever and then you're coming and thrown into this scenario,
Yeah.
you look at the left, people are talking things and you're so confused. You know, sometimes I looked at your presentation and it felt like a different language, but I stayed because I remember looking at myself in the mirror after a long time. I think I wrote an article, looking into the mirror because
Mm.
I had to, yeah, I had to think. It's just an article in my book.
Yeah, yeah. But I would love to read it. Absolutely, yeah.
And then I'm like looking into the mirror. I looked at myself and I said, Grace, you're worth it. I need to prove to myself that I belong. And, you know, with the help of my supervisor, the people around me, my colleagues, here I am. I'm rounding up the PhD in a couple of weeks. And I feel so confident, more confident than I did when I started. Now I can tell you things about porous media.
Good on you, you know. And I'm so proud of you and you should be proud of yourself, of course, because like I've been in a male dominated sector all my career life, and I know firsthand what you're describing, just how much it can affect even your confidence, and that imposter syndrome at a point sets in really quickly. So I completely understand. And to get to head of department even before getting a PhD, like kudos to you. You know, it's a big achievement, especially being in a male-dominated sector as well.
Yes. I was the only head of department at my time out of like 7 other head of departments in the Faculty of
Wow.
Engineering. Yeah, it was
And I
challenging.
can imagine the look on their face when they see you. They think this person does not fit what we think visually they should look as a head of department. It's always amusing when you see the face, the change in their face. Like, huh? Are you sure? Are you joking?
And then I have to keep a straight face and like, yeah. Well, at first when it started, my heart would be pounding, you know, my heart was pounding.
Bless.
But I leaned into into that position. That
Yeah.
position too was thrown on me. It's not like I wanted to do it,
Yeah.
but I leaned into it too and
Also,
built the confidence along the way. Yeah.
you've inspired us to keep going.
Yeah.
And thank you. So you've said that confidence often follows action rather than precedes it. How can we shift our mindset to see action as the pathway to confidence?
So, you know, I think that many of us grew up thinking confidence comes first. Oh, I would do this if I was a bit more confident. Oh, I think I could do this if I was a bit more confident.
Yes.
However, leaning into my experience, um, I'll say confidence comes after you've done something a few times and you
Yeah.
realize you can handle it.
Yes.
So we need to lean into the doing more than like you don't know how high you can jump or how far you can go unless you start. And without us starting, we can't know that, okay, we can actually achieve this thing. So it's just like looking at an athlete doing, or let's say most of us, if you watch Instagram, we'll see all these exercise videos. That's so simple. It's 30 minutes. I can do it. And then you start 5 minutes, you're already panting. You're on the ground. So what does that mean? It means action has to come first before you know your capability. So the mindset has to go like, okay, this is what I want to do. Can I do it? Not yet, but you have to try. And also the brain needs data because it's our brain that builds confidence within us. But if you haven't tried something, then your brain will always tell you that you're going to fail. But with each step you take, I think that's what I did in my PhD. With every small action, because when my supervisor said, okay, let's try it this way, and he pieces the whole thing and told me step by step. So we started from very little steps. And with every little step I took and I won, it gave my brain a data. You can do this. So if anyone is struggling, you know, with building confidence, don't wait for the confidence to come around. Just give yourself the bare minimum and do it. As long as you do that, your brain tells you that, okay, I can do this. And you know that it has a data to rely on. Yeah. So that's the mindset, working to collect evidence for your brain.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And how do we distinguish between healthy hesitation and the kind of limiting belief that quietly holds us back from transformative opportunities?
So between healthy hesitation and limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would say we need to first know who we are
Yeah.
at your core before you can achieve anything in life or before you can go and be very transformative. You need to, understand who you are. You need to know who you are as a person, understand your values, understand what makes you tick as a person. Then you begin to think when the hesitations come in, what are they telling you? When those hesitations come in, what are they telling you? First of all, if it's going to go, if doing that thing is going to counter any of your values or your morals as a person, then that is your mind warning you. And that's a
Yeah.
healthy hesitation. However, if you got nothing to lose, then you know that that's just you putting limiting beliefs on yourself. So it's just you maybe having fear or, something telling you you don't belong. So
Yeah.
another thing I would say is limiting belief says to you. So when you have the feeling in your mind, you think about it, what is this feeling telling me? If the feeling is telling you things like, I don't belong, I can't do this, those negative words, that's a limiting belief. Or if it tells you things like, am I prepared? Do I have enough information? Am I wearing the right clothes? That's healthy hesitation.
Yeah.
So you just need to go and do it. But if it's limiting belief, I don't belong, then you tell yourself, oh, I belong.
Yeah.
Try it. And you tell yourself, okay, no, this is a limitation and I can overcome it. But if it's
Thank
a
you.
healthy hesitation, am I prepared?
Yeah.
Then you now check, okay, what are the things I need to do to get prepared? That's just healthy hesitation. Or like I said, if it's a warning to your brain, it's when it compromises on your values. Doing it's going to make you regret later on. So that's just the way I think I like to differentiate, right? I like to ask myself back the questions. What is this thing
Yeah.
telling me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's so helpful because I know we all have these limiting beliefs sometimes, and you can't quite tell whether it's you stopping yourself or if it's a healthy hesitation. Thank you for that. As a woman in engineering, how has growing in unfamiliar spaces shaped your identity and as well your leadership style?
Okay. Well, growing in unfamiliar spaces as a woman in engineering, first of all, I think I became conscious of, how power and presence work. Funny, but it's true. It's as if I'm bringing my gender into all of this. So I had to become very conscious of that because if you're in an unfamiliar place and you feel like you don't belong, one of the things that helped me in my journey, apart from having the audacity, which I wore like a mask until I grew into it, apart from that, it was having male allies because I had to understand the whole dynamics, the power and the presence. You understand who is who can speak up for you,
Yeah.
understanding ahead of time who can support you, who is a girl's girl. If you meet another fellow woman there, maybe you're just two
Hmm.
out of 20 in the whole engineering panel and you have to be the ones to take decision for others. You look at the other woman and pray she's a girl's girl and not someone who is just going to want to, do things. So that has helped me I had to be immediately, I think that's one of the things I got to learn fast, to be conscious of how power and presence work. Once I enter a room, I begin to look out for who is who, who can speak up for the mission or the vision, and who has people in their hearts and not just ambition. So that's what I became conscious of. It may be sad, but it's the
Yeah.
reality.
But you've shared a lot. Yeah, because allyship, right? Like you mentioned, the male one and then the female allyship is quite important. And you've distinguished both in a really practical way. You would think that in a male dominated sector, two women might be so excited to at least support each other, but other times it does not happen.
Yeah. And then how it shaped my leadership is I just try to make sure I create room for others. I create room for others. I try to be a girl's girl without also being
Yeah.
so blind to the
Yeah.
reality of things.
Absolutely. It's sad that we are at the last question because I would love to have more conversation, but I'm sure we will do this again. So, for the woman standing at the door of a new opportunity right now, unsure whether to step in, what would you say to her?
So the woman standing at the door, well, what I'll say to her is, well, let me say what I'll say to you in case she's listening to this
Yes.
is you don't need to feel ready. And that's normal. You don't need to feel ready to, you know, go achieve that thing you want to achieve. And that's normal. You don't need to feel fearless to walk through that door. You just need to decide if your comfort at this point matters more than your growth. And you need to decide and think about everyone who is looking up to you, starting from yourself, and starting from that little girl who dreamed who you are now and who you can become. We have so many dreams as children. So just look at it and think that if an opportunity stretches you, sometimes it's because it aligns to what you're becoming. So rather than lean into the fear of the stretches, why not think about the person waiting for you on the other side and just go into that room? And remember, it's not enough to go into the room, but even if you feel like you don't belong in that space, you need to stay. You need to bet on yourself to stay, because only staying will you realize that you truly belong.
Wow. That is beautiful. Very lovely advice to end this podcast on. Thank you so much, Grace, for sharing such a powerful perspective. So, you've shown us that readiness often comes after the step, not before it. The rooms that challenge us are often the very spaces that expand us. So, to our listeners, if you're hesitating at the door, this may be your sign to walk in anyway. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Grace.